I was working in a private office with one of my colleagues, I won't say who it was, but a patient had come in for his results after a biopsy and a scan, and my colleague told him that, I'm so sorry, but I only give you 1 month to live. And I could remember that patient crying and crying inconsolably. And after he composed himself, he explained that it wouldn't be enough time for him to pay his bill. But my colleague, who was very kind and very generous, touched him on the shoulder and said, okay, I'll give you an additional 6 months. Anyway, all jokes aside, I was very, very honored when I was asked to be the keynote speaker for this event. And I thought to myself, wow, what am I going to say to these new graduates? There have been so many amazing keynote speakers before me. I know they've said it all and covered everything. And so today, I'm not going to give you a speech, but rather I'm going to share with you 4 principles that I have learned during the course of my career and hope that those experiences would somehow be helpful to you as well. And the principles I want you to reflect on are these. 1, never stop learning. 2, know your purpose. 3, always give back. And 4, work hard and don't be lazy. I have learned that as physicians, we should never stop learning. Now I know that you have all successfully fulfilled the requirements of the MBBS. But think of this accomplishment as the beginning of learning and not as the end of learning. I remember when I was a final year medical student and I was doing my surgical specialty rotation, I was working in the ENT clinic with Dr. Robert Ramsing, and he had instructed the intern to review a particular topic of an interesting case that had presented to clinic. And the intern said, I know about that. I know my ENT. So Dr. Ramsing asked him, you know your ENT, and you're an intern, and I've been an ENT specialist for many years, and I'm still learning ENT. I trust that you would never reach the point where you decide that you're done learning, because if you do, then those who continue to learn will quickly surpass you. All of you can become lifetime learners, but you must have that conviction and a sense of purpose. And you will succeed if you embrace that curiosity and a desire and a commitment to improve yourself. Seize every opportunity to expand your knowledge, develop your skills, and build on your expertise. And the best way to do this is to observe other successful people. Look at other people who have already accomplished what you want to accomplish. Grab hold of your consultants when you can. Follow them on ward rounds, at the clinic, in the operating room. Talk with them and ask them what they did to become successful. Because if that strategy works for them, it might very likely work for you as well. I'm very privileged to have had mentors who taught me that it was very important to continue learning. Doctors like the late Dr. Anthony Regis, Dr. Anthony Frankson, Dr. Sebastian Peter, Dr. Shrikant, Dr. Vranda, Dr. Homer Brimfield, Dr. David Barnett, and many others. Thank you for teaching me that learning is a lifelong responsibility. I have learned that as physicians, we should always know our purpose. Tonight, we will all swear an oath to uphold ethical principles and to save lives. I trust that you would never abandon those vows. When I was a medical student in Jamaica, a lady had come into the emergency room because she had inappropriately used an implement that had to be removed. Some of the medical students in my group were chuckling and making jeering remarks. And I could remember my consultant, quite resolute and stern, and he said, stop. Your job as physicians is to treat, never to judge. Now that was a lesson that I've taken with me throughout my career, and I hope that you would adopt that lesson as well. You will have patients who come in to see you who have done really bad things, but you leave their judgment for law enforcement to handle. Leave it to their clergy, and to their conscience, and to their God. But you do what you are mandated to do. Treat. That's your purpose. Knowing your purpose means having self-respect and respect for others. It means always trying to be on time, always trying to look your best. Don't let your white coat and your stethoscope around your neck strip you of the manners that you once used to have. Being a doctor doesn't mean you no longer have to say yes sir or no sir, or yes mom or no mom to your elders. It doesn't mean you no longer have to say good morning or good evening when you enter a room. Always remember, a purpose-driven individual isn't one who always wants to be in charge, but one who always wants to take care of those who are in their charge. I'm very grateful to have had senior colleagues who demonstrated love and compassion and had that human touch with their patients. Doctors like Dr. Raleigh Butler, Dr. Loxley Monroe, Dr. Paul Roberts, Dr. Frederick Smith, Dr. Corinne Sinqui, Dr. Gertrude Holders, and many others. Thank you for showing me how to be a caring physician. I have learned that as physicians, we should always give back. Now, I know that all of you have successfully fulfilled the MBBS, but I also want you to realize that you have entered the most noble profession on earth, and I hope that you would serve with the purpose to give back and not just because you are looking for something back. I remember some time ago in the 90s, I was traveling to Miami with some of my family members, and we were booked on Bahamas there. And so we sat in the waiting area of the Nassau International Airport until eventually the flight time came, but no boarding announcement was made and no explanation was given. Some of the ticket holders, both residents and visitors alike, became very agitated and they started to argue with the counter agent. The frustration grew so out of control that the police had to be called in to calm the situation. They eventually made an announcement that the flight out of Miami was delayed because it had some mechanical issues. And all of the ticket holders had to take the first flight out the following morning. Now you may ask, Dr. Rivers, why did you mention this? This has nothing to do with medicine. Of course it does. Replace ticket holders with patients, and you put yourself in the shoe of patients when we do not give them our best. How often do we come to clinic late without giving an explanation to our patients? How often do we answer the telephone in the presence of our patients without asking to be excused? How often do we refuse to see a patient who was late for an appointment or maybe didn't have an appointment? Young graduates, what will you do to go beyond the call of duty to help someone? What will you give back? May I make a suggestion? Give back to your country. We are blessed to be living in the greatest country on earth. And despite what anyone would have you believe, yes, we do have our share of problems, but the Bahamas is still a land of law and order. What will you do to give back to the country that has nurtured and sustained us for generations? Doctors are needed on the family islands. Don't hesitate to help your fellow countrymen. Devote some time to working on an island. It's your civic duty and obligation to give back to your country. Give back to your university. It's the institute that provided you with the building blocks for your future development. And by giving back, you invest in the lives of students who are currently in the same position that you were once in. And give back to your parents and to the people who helped you to get to this point. By giving back, you're thanking them for the struggles and the sacrifices they made for your success. And give to those less fortunate individuals who might never be able to help you back. There's a blessing in that small act of kindness and nobility. A caring person is a giving person, and it's hard to be more noble than that. I'm very fortunate to have had doctors who had gone off and came back. They could have stayed in North America or Europe, but some came back. Even though they could have made more money, have better working conditions, even greater exposure. Dr. Robin Roberts, our first Bahamian director of our School of Medicine. Dr. Colleen Fitzgerald, first trained Bahamian female surgeon. Dr. James Johnson, I remember even as a consultant, he did ward rounds 5 days a week. Dr. Marcus Cooper, Dr. Theodore Ferguson, Dr. Dwayne Sands, our Minister of Health, Dr. Hubert Minnis, our Prime Minister, and many others. They came back and they continued to give back. And do you know why? Because they love their country and they love their people. Thank you so much for giving back. Doors open when you give back. I have learned that as physicians, we should always work hard and not be lazy. I believe that you should always be determined to work hard because nothing will be handed to you. Many of my colleagues know that I've always been interested in caring for older folks. So several years ago, one of my colleagues, Dr. Nicole Adley, told me that Cardiff University School of Medicine offers a geriatric training degree for primary care physician. I did my research and found that Cardiff University was the largest university in Wales and at the time was ranked third best in the UK. I looked at the geriatric training program which was offered through Llandoch Geriatric Hospital in Penrith, Wales, and I wanted to enroll in their program, but I couldn't because I didn't have $50,000. And so months went by with me trying to figure out how in the world am I going to get $50,000 to enroll in this program. Until that final month before the deadline of enrollment came that I finally decided, you know, it's not going to happen. So one day I was in clinic, packing my bag to head home, until a nurse came and said those dreaded words that no exhausted physician wants to hear. She said, Dr. Rivers, one last patient came in. Can you see him? One last patient. That's what she said. I could have said no. I could have said, send him to the emergency room or send him somewhere else. But tired as I was, I decided to see that patient. So a gentleman walks into the examination room, right hand swollen like a football, and I said, sir, what happened to you? He said, well, I was gardening, and a bee stung me. I wasn't coming to clinic, but my wife urged me to come. God bless her heart for sending him to clinic. And God bless the bee that stung him. So I explained to him that you have an allergic reaction to the bee venom. I'm going to have to treat you. And so after his treatment, I said, you know what, you may not be able to go to work tomorrow if your hand is still swollen like that. And he said, nah. I said, would you like me to give you some time off? And he said, no, I'll be fine. So I asked him, what type of work did you do? So he said, I'm the general manager of Royal Bank Cable Beach. Immediately my eyes lit up and I said, sir, I need a loan. And he asked how much, and I said, $50,000. So he said, don't worry, just give me your email and I'll have my secretary email you an application in the morning. Sure enough, the next morning, an application was in my email. So the following week, he calls me up and he says, we don't give $50,000 professional loan, that exceeds our limit. But you helped me, so I helped you. I convinced the board that you appear to be a trustworthy and deserving individual, and so they approved your $50,000. Of course, you know the end of the story. I enrolled in the program, and I received my student visa less than 1 week before the deadline of enrollment. That gentleman, by the way, is Mr. Derek Starp, and I thank him for allowing me to share his story with you. But the point of the story is this. Hard work isn't just effort. Hard work is a habit, but it also involves exposing yourself to opportunities that would never have been offered to you. You need to understand that even though there may not be an immediate benefit, and you may not immediately see that tangible reward, but every time you take action to do something that is right, you are blessed with an intangible reward. You develop confidence. You feel good about yourself. There's a sense of pride and happiness and self-esteem. But also understand that laziness is a habit too. And you condition that habit every time you try to skip work and not see patients when you're on call or in clinic. It's like a muscle. The more you condition it and try to stay within your comfort zone, the harder it becomes for you to break that habit of laziness. So don't look around to see how much work your colleague is doing. You do your part. That patient that no one wants to see, you see them. Who knows? That unassuming patient that you reach out to help might be the angel that you entertain unaware. I want to thank Mr. Derek Starr and everyone else who has made a financial contribution to my life. Mr. and Mrs. Valentine and Delma Grimes, Mr. and Mrs. Patricia and Micah Hart, the late Sir Durward Knowles, Ms. Miriam Bain, Ms. Dondella Burke from the Bank of the Bahamas, Mr. Robinson, and all of my friends from the Medical Records Department. They once had a cookout to pay my tuition when I was a medical student. Thank you all for the financial contributions you've made to Rock Motor Trust. Now I know everyone is tired and want to go home, so I'll end here. But if there's one piece of advice I'd like to leave you graduates with, it's this. Always respect each other. If you look to your left and you look to your right, those are your colleagues, many of whom you will be working with for a very long time. You may not always agree with each other. You don't have to. You may not always like each other. No one expects you to. But you should always respect each other. Because the same way you earn respect, you earn disrespect. And if there's one lesson I wish for you to learn this day, this moment, is this. Even when everything seems to be in place, and you have all the right professionals, and all the right knowledge, and all the right drugs, and all the right equipment, things can still go wrong. You therefore owe it to yourselves as physicians and colleagues to look out for each other, hold up each other's shoulder, and walk this long and challenging journey together. And once you've embraced these ideals, your world will change from one stippled with fear and mistrust to one filled with blessings and harmony. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you all.